Well, good morning. It's good to be with you again. Thank you for inviting me back. I I know it's common to you, but I just love your sanctuary. It feels warm when you come in here. Not heat wise, but just inviting. And I like wood. So thank you again for inviting me back. Well, they were enjoying a morning breakfast in an Arizona cafe. Four old ranchers discussing everything from cattle, horses, and the weather to how things used to be in the good old days. Eventually, the conversation went to their spouses. One gentleman turned to the fellow on his right and asked, "Roy, aren't you and your bride celebrating your 50th anniversary soon?" "Yep, we sure are," said Roy. "Well, are you going to do anything special for your anniversary?" Gentleman thought for a while and said, "For our 25th anniversary, I took B to Tucson. Maybe for our 50th, I'll go down there and get her." Now, I don't know if that's the secret to a happy marriage or not, but we know that today some marriages don't last very long. In Clark County, Nevada, which encompasses the town of Las Vegas, a marriage license costs $55. No tests are needed. You just go and show up. No waiting period. The little white wedding chapel has seen more than its share of short duration celebrity weddings. For instance, Frank Sinatra and Mia Farrow were married in 1966 there and divorced in 1968. Bruce Willis and Demi Moore in 1987, divorced in 2000. Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie exchanged vows in 2000 and were divorced in 2003. You think people like that would have it all together and it would be a successful marriage, but things that look good on the outside maybe don't last as long. Marriages, families, relationships, jobs, even our lives don't seem to last long. One would say that our world is drowning in despair in some cases. And I think that's because people are searching for something. They want something lasting, and they still haven't found it. Back in 1989, there was an interview with Donald Trump, and they asked him what horizons are left to conquer. And he said back then, "I'm genuinely enjoying myself. I work and I don't worry." The writer said, "What about death? Don't you worry about dying?" And Trump gave the answer, "No, I'm fatalistic and I protect myself as well as I can. I prepare for things." But then, as Trump started walking out of the room, he turned around and said, "No, I don't believe in reincarnation. I don't believe in heaven or hell, but we go someplace." And then he paused. He said, "I cannot for the life of me figure out where." Now, that's just one person, but I think his words reflect a lot of the attitudes in society and maybe the sadness of this world. They know that something happens after death, but they're not sure why. And they're still looking. They're still searching. And they don't have a clue what really gives meaning to life. But we do. We know what gives meaning to life. We know that there's more to life than this life. We believe in a better life than the one that any person can experience here on earth. And contrary to what Joel Osteen said, if you have your best life now, you're missing out on the best life to come. And you might need to repent. These words from Matthew's gospel are very familiar to us all. "Do not store up treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures, treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and thieves do not break in and steal. A lot of people put all their stock in this world, but this world is not lasting. Everyone gets old. Everything fades. Everyone loses everything eventually. And there has to be more to life, and we know there is. In 1 John chapter 2, verse 17, we find these words, "The world and its desires pass away, but the one who does the will of God lives forever." There is life after death. There's a better life after death. There's something greater to live for. There is hope rather than despair. But you know all that, don't you? In chapter 3 of 2 Corinthians, Paul spends some time describing the glory of God and how the not yet believers do not understand that word of God. It is as though there's a veil or a blindfold that prevents them from the message. Now in chapter 4, which you heard read a little part of, Paul explains that for the believer, there's an inner light, an inner glory that we contain. And basically, we possess that light so that we can share it. And that light of Christ, gives us light. But Paul reminds us that God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers. If it was true 2,000 years ago, think of society today. We can't understand on our own the light of Christ, but God has a plan. He's the one who said, "Let the light shine out in the darkness." And he's placed that light within us to shine into the lives around us. I like that picture of puddles of light, by the way. Thank you. We know that it's the Holy Spirit within us that provides that light. And that light works in the lives of unbelievers to bring about conversion to Christ. And you and I can be the ones to help open that door to salvation as we show the light of Christ to those around us. Let us remember that we also can help to shut that door if we don't live lives worthy of Christ, if our example is a bad example of a follower of Christ. A friend of mine posted something about going to a restaurant on Sunday after worship. Now, I know none of you do that. You all go home. But he went to the restaurant and was talking to the waitress. And he asked her, "How do people from church treat you when they come out to lunch?" And she said, "Some well. Some are very nice, very friendly. They tip well." She said, "But there's others that are very rude and demanding and don't show a good picture of Christ." Now, I know you don't show a bad picture of Christ, right? Everywhere you go, you shine the light. But there are those who aren't very good at sharing their faith when they get out in the world. Jesus asked us to go, preach the gospel, baptize, and teach all that needs to be taught. That's our goal as a church, to shine that light. The writer and commentator Howard Hendricks wrote, "In the midst of a generation screaming for answers, Christians are stuttering. But we don't stutter," he said, "when it comes to most things that we believe in, sports, politics, grandchildren, etc." I think what Hendricks is saying is that we have a shared ministry, not just pastors and leaders, but all of us have that shared ministry, a ministry of suffering that tells that we are sharing or identifying with Christ's suffering. That shared ministry, Paul writes, gives hope that enabled him to persevere when troubles come. Believers throughout history, and in many faiths today, have given us examples of faithfulness in the midst of terrible persecution. We know the great book, The Martyr's Mirror, shows us people of faith who suffered and died for the cause of Christ. In chapter 11 of 2 Corinthians, Paul lays down his suffering pedigree. He said he worked harder, in prison more frequently, been beaten more frequently, exposed to death over and over again for the cause of Christ. Maybe you remember his pedigree. 5 times he received 39 lashes. 3 times beaten with rods. He was stoned once. 3 times shipwrecked. In danger in rivers, from bandits, from his own people. In danger from the Gentiles. Gone without sleep. Been without food and drink. Cold, naked, etc., etc., etc. And still he labored on for the gospel. And today, we complain if someone makes fun of us for believing. God help us to share that light. You heard the words this morning. Therefore, we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we're wasting away, yet inwardly we're being renewed. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory. It goes on to say, so we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. People need to know that there is something beyond this life. We have the Bible, God's eternal word. It contains the answers to life's riddles and questions, but we must present it as followers of Christ. We must preach it, teach it, and live it, and respond to this world by living out our faith. Living by faith is not normal. For most people, they need to see and touch and feel. If they can't, then it's not real to them. But as believers, we hold on to that which we cannot touch, that which we cannot see, and that which we cannot feel. We live by faith. I don't know if you're familiar with the author Lee Strobel. He wrote books like The Cause for Christ, The Case for Faith as well. He's a former atheist and a newspaperman. He said in 1 Corinthians 13:12, we see that on this side of heaven, we only see things dimly because we can't understand everything from our finite perspective. And he went on to say, let me give you an analogy. Leslie, his wife, and I were driving up to the Door Country, Wisconsin. We were driving up Highway 42 in the dark when it started raining heavily and we hit dense fog. I could barely see the white stripe on the edge of the road. I didn't stop because I was afraid that someone would come along and pile into me from behind, so I crept along. But then we saw a truck in front of us, and we could see his taillights through the fog. The driver apparently had fog lights in front because he was traveling at a confident speed. I knew that if we would just follow those taillights, we'd be headed in the right direction. And he said the same is true in our understanding why there is evil and suffering in the world. We may not be able to see all the details in front of us. We might not know why, but there are some key biblical truths that can eliminate some points of light for us. In his translation of the Bible called The Message, Eugene Peterson renders verse 7 this way. We carry this message around in unadorned clay pots of our ordinary lives. Do you understand what he's saying? We're just ordinary common folks. But if we decide to follow Christ, the Holy Spirit places within us a treasure, that light and life of Christ. Do you know that we are carrying God's treasure in these earthen vessels? We're made from the dust of the earth, the Bible tells us. And some of us are just crackpots. But that light still shines as we follow Christ. We still are able to show Christ to the world. A few years ago, I had the privilege of speaking to the counselors at our church camp, Camp Ader, down in Fairfield. I told them a little bit about myself, my family, my ministry, and I asked them to raise their hands if they were ministers. No one raised their hand. My response to them was to remind them, in Christ, we are all ministers. We are all the clay pots that God uses to hold the treasure, that valuable message of salvation in Jesus Christ. It's what's inside the pot that matters. So let me ask you, are you ministers? How many of you are a minister? Okay, I got a few of you. A few of you heard what I said. We are all ministers. That's the Anabaptist story. That yes, some are called to be pastors and preachers, but we are all carriers of the light of Christ. And it's our job to let that light shine. Just after World War I, General Douglas Haig said to a group of clergymen in Scotland, "It's your business to put my business out of work. It's your business to put my business out of work." In this messed up, mixed up world of despair, it's our business to put despair out of business. Again, we live in a world and age and culture that's very focused on the visible as the ultimate measure of reality. The importance of image and fashion and being cool over truth and integrity and moral purity is a result of a generation that's modeled itself after impure models and allowed the values that are shaped by the media and by our peers, mainstream or not. More attention is paid today of what the Kardashians think and do than to the words of Jesus or the writings of Paul. Our society places enormous value on such things as the size and location of our homes, our properties, the sticker price on our cars, how many we own, our overall financial worth. And even clergy people get caught up in this rat race sometimes as they compete for larger and larger churches and bigger and more diversified budgets and a larger media presence. If these tangibles are not the ones that hold your attention, maybe your primary focus is on something better, something not seen or felt, and those concerns that seem to drag down so many people. Perhaps you're struggling with an illness that saps you of energy or strength. Perhaps it's financial needs that give you sleepless nights. Or maybe a relationship that's broken that eats away at your joy. Or maybe you're carrying around a burden of guilt over past failures and sins that keep rising to accuse you and hold you captive to the past. My sisters and brothers, don't let the past overshadow and keep you from sharing the light and life that you possess in Christ. There's an old saying, when Satan tries to remind you of your past, remind him of his future. We get held down by so many things of this world. But I hope that in spite of everything that you may face today and tomorrow and the weeks to come, that you'll remember what Jesus said. He said, "You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before all, that they may see your good deeds and praise his Father in heaven." You in Christ have the treasure. You in Christ have the light this world needs. Share his light. Show something better to this world. Amen.